Hey, true crime fanatics, this is Claire.
And I'm Andy.
You're tuned in to the Homicide Hobbies podcast, which is a podcast for people who love to hear about the horrendous crimes that people commit. Enjoy.
So today we're going to discuss a man named Joel Guy Jr. He ends up being convicted of murdering both of his parents, Joel Sr. and Lisa Guy. This is our Thanksgiving episode, so happy Thanksgiving to those who celebrate it, and happy Thursday for those who don't. So some trigger warnings for today: obviously murder, stabbing, dismemberment, and I guess that's really it. We have a grown-ass man who's a mooch and decides to kill his parents and mutilate their bodies. So
Yikes.
Something to look forward to while you're preparing your Thanksgiving feast.
And to watch some of the weirdly quiet relatives closely.
Yes, keep an eye on them. So our location is in the United States, in Tennessee, 2016.
Ooh, a recent one.
Uh-huh. So a little background on our murderer, Joel Michael Guy Jr. He was born March 13th, 1988. His family members would later refer to Joel as being a recluse, and he would rarely come out of his room, but he was intellectually competent.
That's a weird way to describe a relative.
He's smart,
emotional.
but withdrawn, I guess. Joel Sr. was born February 10th, 1955. He was previously married and had 3 daughters. And he ends up marrying his second wife, Lisa, who is Joel Jr.'s mother. And she was born August 8th, 1961. Joel Jr. attended and graduated from Hanville High School in Tennessee. He went on to graduate from Louisiana School for Math, Science, and the Arts in 2006. Guy Jr. spent 1 semester at George Washington University and then attended Louisiana State University because he was apparently training to become a plastic surgeon.
You said he's going to dismember people?
Sure is.
Are they dead or alive?
They're dead. He had never been employed anywhere in his entire life and was financially supported by his parents.
How old was he in 2006?
He was born in 88. 18?
Yeah, depending on when his birthday was.
March. But, so he graduates from the school. He's 18, never had a job, which that's fine. Whatever. But
I don't know why, but in my head, I was thinking he was like 40 years old. He's been supported by his parents this whole time, but 18,
Yeah, that's not bad. But Joel Jr. had been living in Baton Rouge for about 10 years. So at this point now he's 28, and his parents are still financially supporting him. Still,
what is he doing? What is he doing in Baton Rouge?
He's going to school. He was attending Louisiana State University, trying to become a plastic surgeon, supposedly. And then his mother, a lot of her friends would later say that she basically worked just to give her son her paycheck.
Well, it's the idea investing in somebody.
It was her baby.
Yes. Yeah.
As far as I'm aware, Joel Jr. was her only child. So that's it's a lot. Joel Jr. spent a total of 9 years in college without graduating. Which it's fine, but
what's the normal length of time for schooling for a plastic surgeon?
I don't know. But I feel like you got to get through the basics and then get into med school. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but I'm just getting a reference of from when to when. It starts with a bachelor's degree, 4 years, obviously 4 years, followed by 4 years of medical school, and then 6 years of residency. And then most likely, typically your last year is a fellowship.
So he never graduated the first 4 years. The first 4 years took him 9 years.
He didn't even have a bachelor's degree?
He did
How's that even possible?
I guess if you keep failing your classes, I have no idea. Or not having enough credits to graduate, and you just keep taking...
Yeah, but I could see not having a full range of courses if you were doing something else. Most people working, but still.
Nope. Never graduated, never got into med school. It was just his plan to eventually become a surgeon. He just first he needed to get through that first 4 years, which again, he was in college for 9 and never graduated. And all of it was financed by his parents. So that brings us to Thanksgiving 2016. Joel Jr., who at this point is 28 years old, and his 3 older half sisters gathered with their parents, Joel Sr. and Lisa, at their parents' home in Knoxville, Tennessee. Joel Sr. and Lisa had been married for 31 years. Joel Sr. had previously, like I said in the beginning, had been married and had his 3 daughters. But because they'd been married for so long, I'm guessing that Lisa and the daughters had a pretty good relationship since they're referred to as their daughter. It was November 24th. The Thanksgiving feast apparently went off without a hitch. There was no issues. There was no drama. Everybody seemed to enjoy themselves, have fun, stuff themselves way too full. And then Joel Sr., who was 61 years old, and Lisa, who was 55 years old, say goodbye to their daughters, who all also live in Tennessee, after their celebration was over. Now, at some point, the husband and wife had apparently told the daughters that they planned to cut Joel Jr. off financially right after the Thanksgiving because they wanted to retire.
Well, I feel like they should have had that talk with him.
I think it was probably giving them a heads up of like pretty upset because he was 20 years old and never paid for any, like never had a job. If ever he needed money, he just got it from mom and dad.
Mm.
You know, anyway.
Issues.
I do. Joel Jr.
Yeah.
Joel Jr. was supposedly going to leave the next day, so on Friday, and head home to Baton Rouge.
Once he got his gas money.
Pretty much, yeah. Little did anyone know, Joel Jr. had already plotted out the murders of his parents in a notebook that he had in his backpack, and he'd gone out and purchased plastic containers, bleach, and other chemicals that he felt he was going to need.
That's disgusting. They must have been dropping hints, and they just figured he wasn't smart enough to be picking them up. So
I think they probably did talk to him and give him the heads up of like, hey,
this money train can't last forever.
Yeah, and you figure if he wants to be a plastic surgeon, great. They gave him the benefit of the doubt. They've been paying for him to go to school, and if he hasn't graduated from a 4-year university in 9 years, he's also living out of state, which makes things a little bit more expensive. Like that's
a lot more expensive.
Yeah. So, and certain articles that I read, it said that Joel Sr. had retired, and other articles said that he had recently been fired. And his mother had also recently passed away. So Lisa and Joel Sr. had decided that they were going to both retire and they were going to move 90 miles away to his late mother's home. So I'm guessing that they had discussed this with all of their kids. And since the income was going to slow down because they were both retired, they would not be able to afford to float his lifestyle anymore.
Mm.
You know what? Yeah. I didn't say it. Stop it. At some point after the 3 girls leave, Lisa decided to go do some early Black Friday shopping. And that's when Joel Jr. took it upon himself to go upstairs and he stabbed his father to death in their exercise room. The stabbings pierced Joel Sr.'s lungs, his liver, and his kidneys and broke several of his ribs.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. When Lisa returned from shopping, Joel Jr. ambushed his mother in a similar attack. Lisa's coworkers started to become concerned when she didn't show up to work. Lisa worked as a human resource accounts payable administrator at Jacobs Engineering in Oak Ridge, Tennessee. And it was the last day, by the way, before she was supposed to retire.
That's weird. She missed her party.
Yeah, which is probably why they were super stressing about where she was. And like I said before, Joel Sr. had just recently retired from working as a pipeline engineering designer. Lisa and Joel Sr. were planning on moving to his late mother's home. And they had told their daughters and Joel Jr. during Thanksgiving that their next get together for Christmas would be at the new place 90 miles away. So it was a point in their life they were excited for. After not being able to reach Lisa, her coworkers contacted police to go do a welfare check. When officers responded to the guy's home, it appeared to be empty. Officers found it a bit odd that the house was for sale but had no lockbox on the front door. I don't know why that in particular was found to be odd.
Yeah.
But it was something that was noted. So officers peek through the front door and they see groceries on the floor in the foyer. And some of the groceries that the officers saw just kind of dumped on the ground were ice cream, sausage, bacon, like refrigerated stuff that's just.
He didn't even put the groceries away.
He sure didn't. So the police go around to the back of the house, and apparently the back door, the doorknob was removed.
Why?
I have no idea. This guy was a complete moron. He thought he was being smart, but we'll get into that in a little bit. And with the doorknob removed, the officers could feel an extreme amount of heat coming out of the house, along with strange, strong chemical smells. So one of the officers went around to the front yard, opened up the car door to one of the guy's vehicles. It's really weird saying their last name, by the way, but either Joel or Lisa's vehicle that was parked in the driveway, and pushed the garage door opener button, giving the police access to the home. When officers first went inside, they saw the thermostat was set at 90 degrees.
Why?
We'll get there. There was a table with both Joel Sr. and Lisa's wallets on it, and also a sledgehammer sitting on top of another table with several guns out. The officers then walked past the groceries on the floor that they'd seen through the front door window and in through the kitchen, where there was a large stock pot on the stove boiling. You want to take a wild guess as to what's in the stove? In the stock pot?
Body parts.
They would later discover it was decapitated head of Lisa Guy.
I don't understand the purpose of boiling a head.
I don't either.
People like to do that. I don't.
Yeah, Catherine Knight, she did that too.
What's with boiling the heads? Has anyone asked these questions? Is it just because it's small enough to?
You know what? It's a good question. I have no idea. So then the officers go upstairs because they could hear a dog barking, and they found the family dog locked inside of a bedroom. There was blood splattered all over the walls down the hallway, and they discovered Joel Sr.'s dismembered hands on the floor with large spots of blood on the rug. I couldn't imagine being these officers, by the way. That sounds like a really gruesome scene to walk into.
And the smells.
Mm-hmm. So the officers continue to search the house. They enter the bathroom, where they found both Joel Sr.'s and Lisa's dismembered corpses sitting inside 2 plastic tubs and a homemade acidic solution. The officers found Lisa's clothing, which had been cut off her body, on the second floor, along with sewer line cleaner, baking soda, liquid fire drain cleaner, lye, hydrogen peroxide, uric acid, bleach, and a chemical sprayer. There were so many chemicals inside the house that the officers doing the investigation had to put on hazmat suits in order to process the crime scene.
Who is this guy?
We'll get there.
He needed some fresh air too.
He sure did. One of the officers at the scene said it was the most horrific thing he'd ever encountered in his life. Another officer said that walking through the downstairs of the house, nothing seemed to make sense. You could see down the hallway and you could see hands not connected to a body, just hands on the floor. And at that point, the other officers, they held the hallway and started doing standard building clearing, making sure that there was nobody else in the house. Mm-hmm. And the officer said he will never get the smells out of his head or out of his dreams. I couldn't imagine. And keep in mind, the house is set at 90 degrees. Genius Joel Jr. forgot his notebook at the crime scene.
Well, I don't feel like it would have been a big surprise to figure out who did it.
Yeah. In his notebook, he had several ideas on how to murder his parents, dispose of their bodies, and dispose of evidence.
So it looks like he should have spent some more time on it.
I like to do the research, and some of the articles that I end up reading, there are comments from other people. And one of the comments that someone else had written down, because we haven't really gotten into the crime scene all the way yet, but as you can see, he left one heck of a mess. One of the comments that somebody put in there was, yeah, he didn't realize, having killed his mother, there was nobody to come behind him and clean up. Which, I mean,
he wasn't used to cleaning doing it himself, so he's just like, man,
it was a
I didn't
lot of work.
expect all this.
Pretty much, yep.
That's where he was gonna do the dog too, but he's like, he can't even get this finished.
One of his genius ways of disposing of evidence was to flood the home.
Flood it? With
Yeah.
what, smells?
No, I guess he was thinking of like turning all the water faucets and stuff on and just plugging drains and letting it just.
He does realize it wouldn't be like in the movies and the whole house would turn into a fish tank. It would just,
No, I
it
don't
would
think he
ruin
did.
the floor. And what did he get drain cleaner for then?
To make his solution to soak the parents in. We'll get into it. He also made a note in his notebook to set up an automated text from his mother, Lisa's phone on Sunday to, quote, prove that he was in Baton Rouge and she was still alive, end quote.
But you'd be able to see it was scheduled.
Again, I don't think he's a genius here. The FBI and East Baton Rouge Sheriff's Office placed Joel Jr. under surveillance after they discovered the crime scene and his notebook.
Where is he, though? Like, he just
He
went
went-
back to school?
Yes. So on Tuesday, November 29th, 2016, Joel Guy Jr. was arrested outside of his East Baton Rouge apartment and charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder, felony murder, and 2 charges of abuse of a corpse. During Joel Jr.'s trial, prosecutors advised the victims' families and people in the courtroom that they may want to excuse themselves due to the graphic nature and the crime scene photos, because it was unlike many other crime scenes that they had ever seen in that area or in general in the U.S. The prosecutor described how Joel Guy Sr. had been murdered. Apparently, he suffered 42 stab wounds. It was so brutal that 12 of those 42 wounds left marks on his ribs, so severe that they severed the bones.
It's a lot of rage.
It is. There was also the severe damage to, like I mentioned earlier, Joel Sr.'s lungs, kidney, and liver. He also had an injury to his shoulder so severe that a piece of the weapon was lodged in the muscle tissue.
He's an ungrateful little brat, is what he is.
Yep. And as I also stated before, when officers were going through the house, Joel Sr.'s hands were both severed at the wrist. His arms were severed at the shoulder blades. His legs were sawed off at his hip. His foot was severed at the ankle. Joel Jr. left his father's right foot in the exercise room.
Understand the house being peppered with body parts.
So
there's pieces of people everywhere is what I'm picturing, and then the head on the boil. So
you would be correct.
And if it was boiling, I mean, unless he put it on a simmer, if he did that like Thursday night, well, I assume Friday, what day was it? It was the same day, Friday?
So I read conflicting reports. Some said Friday, some were saying it was Monday, but by Tuesday he was arrested. So somewhere within.
If he didn't put a shit ton of water in there, it would have boiled all out and then done that like burning smell. Like, I don't know.
Well, he did have a lid on it, so it would have contained some of the moisture. But yeah, he would have boiled, and it's one of those huge stock pots, one of the big, tall ones. But I pictured, again, I couldn't picture it with body parts, but my youngest was told to go pick up his toys, and he was carrying more than his arms could hold.
Oh,
so he had
it just fell out. That's awful.
I mean, that's the way I pictured it, because it didn't make sense to me that he's dropping hands in the hallway and a foot in the extra. Like,
but he got Tupperware. Like,
he didn't get Tupperware. We're getting to it.
He's a man child.
He is. But the prosecutor said that Joel Sr. had fought fiercely for his life, which that's so heartbreaking. I couldn't imagine having your adult son, who you have done nothing but give your all to, attacking you like this. It's awful. For Joel Jr.'s mother, Lisa, she ended up being stabbed 31 times, causing 21 severe injuries. She was stabbed in the butt, and 9 of her ribs were severed.
You threw me off with the butt stabbing. Was she like fleeing and he dove?
I don't know. Lisa's arms were severed at the shoulder, and her legs were cut below the knees.
Below the knees?
Uh-huh. So I
What
guess
is he
like
cutting with?
a saw.
Like hacksaw, handsaw,
I'm not
electric
sure.
saw, a
I'm not sure.
chainsaw?
I'm not sure.
But that's a little creepy. This is Thanksgiving, not the Halloween special.
Could have fooled me.
Keep your demons to yourself.
So Joel Jr. placed his parents' dismembered torsos and their limbs in two 45-gallon containers with a concoction of bleach, drain cleaner, sewer line cleaner, hydrogen peroxide, and other chemicals.
He's lucky he didn't kill himself.
Right?
Although, that's the way it should have happened. They should have found him. He passed out from the fumes and went head first into it and drowned in some bleach.
Maybe boiled his face off in the process.
Yeah.
So Joel Jr. was trying to quickly dissolve their bodies. And I don't know about dissolving the bodies, but I would think if it's strong enough to dissolve a body, that it's also going to destroy one of those plastic containers.
So that's actually an interesting thought. So, did you ever watch Fight Club?
Long time ago.
Okay, so they also were like they were using an acid solution to dissolve like the fat to make soap. And so there's certain things that can't go in glass or plastic for the reason it will eat through, but then there's certain things that where it'll eat organic matter, it can't go through like polypropylene or like a lot of the plastics. Even some antibiotics actually that like it can't go into plastic, but it can go in glass or vice versa. Which is why, bleach can be in a plastic bottle because it won't eat through that.
Yeah, but I would think that putting lye and bleach and drain cleaner and all this concoction, it's not just one.
Now, think of your 55-gallon drums that will hold some of this stuff because transporting it.
Yeah, but a lot of those can be are metal, and then you also have plastic. I'm just saying, like, I'm surprised that the concoction he came up with didn't chew through the plastic.
Yeah.
Because I get that certain containers need to be, or certain chemicals need to be in certain containers. It's just
he's lucky he didn't make a blend that ate through it.
Yeah, because it's disgusting. And in his notebook, Joel Jr. had written down to turn the thermostat up and explained with a note next to that that it would speed up decomposition and possibly melt fingerprints.
What?
I don't know. He's an idiot. State prosecutors said that the crime scene officers that discovered the scene said it was so unimaginable. They were quoted as saying it was a diabolical stew of human remains.
Yeah, I would say that's the whole house because between the heat and all the things.
Well, they were specifically talking about the two 45-gallon containers.
Hey, it's kind of funny with his brewing of chemical mixtures. You know how they do like to get fingerprints raised with like putting them in a little plastic thing and then heating up glue to get the glue to stick to the fingerprints.
Okay.
Are you following me? You've seen where they do that? Like with duct tape and stuff where it's hard to print things. They'll put it in a container and heat up the glue and it sticks to the fingerprints. It'd be funny if his like little he turns the thermostat on up high to melt said fingerprints, but in actuality he just made them all show up.
That would be pretty funny, actually.
Like him trying to cover it up and it makes it more obvious. No? Okay.
I'm a little concerned, by the way, how you know which chemicals need to be in which container. That hasn't left my mind. We will discuss this later.
No. So it goes to pharmacy-related things I find it interesting that there are certain materials that just can't be in certain containers. That's why I was thinking antibiotics, because there's one in particular that has to be in a glass bottle, to which I asked, why does it have to be in a glass bottle? If it goes into a plastic one, it like turns into a glue and sticks to the sides, and then you'll never get it out of the bottle.
Ew.
Because I was doing the whole, Why do we even have glass containers in here? Because every time we send it out with somebody, you got to tell them that, hey, this needs to be shaken, but don't fling it across the room during that, or make sure you got a good hold on the bottle. Otherwise, I mean, it's glass.
Interesting.
But I was just surprised.
So back to Joel Jr. In his notebook that the officers found, he had a list of things to do prior to murdering his parents, along with noting items to bring with him, including a blender and food processor.
Ew.
Yeah. He also had things
What the hell
listed
is he
such as...
doing with the blender?
We'll get there. He also had things listed such as killing knives needed for murdering.
I hope that he went into a store and asked for killing knives.
I feel like if he did, his parents would probably still be alive.
I don't know, because people ask weird shit all the time and don't go to jail for it, so there's no crime in that. And then what do you tell the police? This dude just came in and asked for killing knives. They might just think he's a new hunter and is stupid.
Or if, actually sitting here thinking about it, maybe he's referencing the knives for stabbing his parents versus knives for dismemberment.
Don't make it better for him. It's
I'm not.
stupid.
I'm trying to make sense of moron
And
here.
That's not a thing. Killing knives and dismemberment knives. That's not what they're called. It might be on his checklist, but I'm just hoping that he walked in somewhere. I need some killing knives.
So he also on this list had a sledgehammer, and then he made a note to bring the blender and food grinder. And next to that, he made a note saying to grind meat.
But what did he expect the acids and everything to do?
I don't know. I think he was just trying to make such a mess that I think he didn't think about all the goo and blood and everything that comes out, because I think he expected it to be
he didn't know how to make soap.
He also made a note to flush chunks down the toilet, and he went as far as making a note.
That's where the drain cleaner comes in.
No, drain cleaner was poured into the 45-gallon containers, but he went as far as making a note next to flush chunks down the toilet.
Everybody do that. Like, it's not even the first person to be like, I'm just going to flush these pieces.
So I figured that's what the grinder was for, was to grind up chunks of stuff and make so it didn't clog the pipes. But he made a note next to that to remind himself to not put it in the garbage disposal.
That's disgusting.
Yes. He also had on his list to get plastic bins for denature process, get bleach. And then he made a note that said, does not matter where they are killed, just get rid of bloody spots to prevent evidence of time of death. And then in parentheses, he wrote,
he didn't have a note, don't sprinkle the house with body parts.
He didn't. But in parentheses, he wrote, not on the mattress or on the couches.
He liked those. He was hoping to inherit them.
So I guess he tried to do some sort of research, and depending on how the blood, how it dried, they could figure out a time of death kind of deal. And if he was still associated with being in the area, it was going to bring it back to him.
Right. Because usually when people break in, they go through an extensive process of dismemberment and noting things down. Did he watch a murdering guide, What Not to Do, and then thought it was What to Do?
I don't know. He also referenced the family dog in his notebook, where he said he would either kill the dog, and then he drew a line through that and replaced it with the idea of taking the dog with him. He also had written down, open the doggy door to provide entryway, but that was crossed out. And then written next to that was, he needs to be blamed, not intruder. So
what?
I don't know. I don't know if maybe he was, okay, so
the dog did it.
I'm thinking that maybe he was trying to make it look like the dog shredded to the parents, but
how did the head get in the pot?
He also went as far as we're getting to the details.
That's what the doorknob. Never knew people did that. They took a doorknob off. That seems rather lengthy thing to do.
So he also goes as far as like writing out his plan.
He forgot to make a note. Keep the murder notebook with me.
Yeah.
I think he licked his fingers and like flipped the page. You're like, oh shit.
Maybe. So I think he might have been trying to make it look like his dad killed his wife
Mm-hmm.
because he puts, we're getting to it. So if I can get finished through a sentence before you interrupt me, we'll get
It's my
there.
job. You talk slow.
He also had, as part of his list, get plastic sheeting for disposal process. He also made a note to get hollow point bullets just in case with a line crossing through it, and then made a note of saying
Too loud.
he would be seen purchasing the bullets. So just use the computer room gun, and then made a note next to that that said, check to make sure there's bullets. And then in parentheses wrote last resort.
Does he know when making a list, he doesn't have to say what it's for?
I think because it was such a intricate
Extensive
plan for him that he needed to make notes so that he wasn't like, wait, why did I want to do this again?
You're like, what did I need this plastic sheet for?
Yeah.
It's starting to become clear to me why school was hard for him.
Exactly.
This is what he was doing when he was failing his classes. He should have
Probably.
been listening to the lectures, and he's just scrawling along with his denatured alcohols.
So I have a notebook, and I know you have a notebook that we lovingly refer to as our murder notebooks, but that's for
I'm not
case
planning
research.
a murder. It's research. Not for murder, but for podcasting.
Yeah, but this guy literally had a murder notebook.
Did you think? Yeah.
He also had a note that said, bleach reacts with luminol just like blood, so douse the house with bleach. And then he made a note under that to purchase a big sprayer and lie.
Right, but if there's blood still there, they don't need the luminol to be like, looks like there's blood here. And if there's a hand there as well, they know where to look.
I think he didn't expect it to be as messy as it was.
Yeah. You think all the blood goes?
I don't think he knew how much blood is in the human body.
Good thing he was trying to be a doctor.
Right? Again, he didn't even get into med school because he didn't finish the first 4. But he had a trash compactor on his list with a question mark. And with that, he put the body gives time of death. So he needs an alibi. And I don't know what that has to do with the trash compactor.
He doesn't either. This was his rough draft. This is his brainstorming sheet. He was just spitballing and seeing what stuck. And then he didn't pick one thing. He just decided to half-ass all the things.
Yeah. So I think you might be spot on. He probably was watching some type of like documentary on different murderers.
He was watching Dexter.
And just took it's possible.
That's where he got the plastic sheet idea. Like, plastic.
Probably.
We need plastic. I need to coat the whole house in plastic. Then I'll just roll it all up.
I mean, that's literally what it seems like he was trying to do.
And then now I picture him with like armfuls of body parts trying to walk down into the kitchen, and they're just sprinkling the house.
I mean, that is what it looks like happened. In his notebook, along with all of his list of things to buy, were methods to kill his parents and destroy the evidence, and how to manipulate forensic findings and the dismemberment of his parents. And from the look of it, it seems like he was going to murder his mother and then make his father disappear. So it looked like his father had killed his mother. Because he goes on in his notebook to say, quote, place her in the shower, turn on hot water, and point it at her to get rid of forensics. Remove her clothes and take them with me for disposal.
What?
Uh-huh. And then
where did he dispose of them?
He ended up not disposing of them. He did not stick to any of his plans. No, he stuck them in the
No, he forgot because he left his murder notebook. He's like, fuck, what was I supposed to do with these? There was
and then he had it
on that sheet.
And then he had a note. His note continued on with, quote, cut off his arm and plant his flesh under her fingernails. Place her hand with his DNA so that the DNA is not washed off by the shower. So to me, it sounds like he originally was planning to stab his mother to death, strip her naked, and stick her in the shower to wash off his DNA off of her, but then to cut off his dad's arm and I guess scraped the dad's arm with the mom's hand so that they found the dad's DNA under her fingernails.
And then somehow they magically dismembered each other.
No, and then I think he was going to dismember the father and dispose of him to make him disappear.
Right.
Yeah, he's not a bright one.
What about all like the copious amounts of blood from Paul?
Again, I don't think he thought about how much blood is in a human body.
Still a leap to the boiling head.
I think once he realized how much blood was in the body, he went frantic and just started combining all of his harebrained ideas and just came up with this huge mess that the police stumbled upon. And then to dispose of the house, I guess he had a note.
Would it not have been a better idea to burn the place?
So he made a note of, quote, placing hair curler, also for the normal people, a curling iron, with that's what he wrote. I have a copy of I have a copy of his notes, by the way. And he wrote, place hair curler with flammable paper and flammable containers of gasoline in 4 locations. His killing room, her killing room, his bathroom, her bathroom, end quote. Which,
that's a lot of hair curlers.
Not only is it a lot of curlers, but I think he meant to put like gasoline in each room, and he thought that the curling iron would set paper on fire and then the fire would just go from room to room. I think he's watched too many movies.
Yeah.
And if he's planning to leave DNA from his dad under his mom's nails, granted, he dismembered her, but this is just what he had written down. If you're going to set the house on fire, the evidence that he's trying to manipulate and plant would also be destroyed.
But beyond that, I thought he was flooding the place. He can't do fire and water.
Again, he's not brilliant.
I don't even understand this plan. So like,
apparently he didn't either.
Fill the house with water and then light a match. Like, no wonder he just was like, you know what? I just gotta leave. I'm exhausted. He's so fucking stupid.
He probably had a headache from all the fumes too.
I don't even. And the fire was his better idea.
He also made notes, by the way, to douse the killing rooms, the kitchen, and the kitchen with bleach.
Retardant material. Oh.
So he's brilliant. So police found receipts once they arrest him showing Joel Jr. bought the chemicals at Walmart, and that they also found a meat grinder that he referenced in his notes in the back of his car.
Did he use it or did it stay in the car?
I think it stayed in the car.
That should have been something to stay if he used it.
In the car because, again, it was a very haphazard. Yeah. So some of the receipts that Joel Jr. had in his possession when they arrested him and impounded his car and all that showed that he used cash for every transaction and bought supplies for the murders as early as November 7th. He purchased several items at Ace Hardware, and he also purchased several items on November 18th at Home Depot. On the 19th, he was seen at Academy Sports purchasing a Kabar knife. I didn't know what that was, so I looked it up. It's a fighting knife. And in 1995, a version of it was released with stainless steel blade and a synthetic handle. It's a big knife.
So he did ask somebody for a killing blade.
Sure did. A few days later, on the 21st, cameras captured Joel Jr. purchasing the 2 plastic tubs that his parents' torsos and limbs were found in. According to reports, Joel Jr. received several cuts to his hands while assaulting his father, including a cut on his left thumb, and he was seen in Walmart on camera purchasing first aid stuff like Neosporin, Band-Aids, and other bandages and stuff. And then that's actually what made him leave the mess of a crime scene because
boo-boos.
Yes, because of his boo-boos. So the police believe that the parents were killed somewhere between Friday and Saturday after Thanksgiving. And on Sunday, Joel Jr. drove back to Baton Rouge to be treated at a student clinic on campus. And he had every intention of returning to his parents' home to finish carrying out his plan. I don't think that he had expected his mother's coworkers to throw a retirement party and then actually miss her presence.
He's an idiot then. Again.
He sure is.
He didn't think anybody'd miss the person they're throwing the party for.
I don't think he thought
What's
that.
crazy, if he would have waited a day later, let her go to her party, it would have taken a long time for people to notice.
Mm-hmm.
Because you figure family just left, so they wouldn't be calling immediately. They just saw him.
And they were planning to move, so they would have assumed if they hadn't heard from them that they were just packing and preoccupied.
Although you'd think it'd be a weird thing to do if he planned to come back to do some more cleanup. He turned the air up, so can he? Like, why would you want to come back several days later to that?
So
you'd think you'd turn the air down, buy yourself some time. Although I guess he thought they would turn gummy.
So his whole plan was he was trying to speed up the decomposition, which, again, I don't understand why you would want to speed it up. He was trying to mess with the time of death, and if they couldn't prove when the parents were actually killed.
If he has a meat grinder, like, you're not going to be able to figure out what temperature they are and when they died if they're juiced.
I think he realized how much work that would be.
Clearly. That's why he didn't want to go back.
So Joel Jr.'s motive was money. He would receive $500,000 in life insurance money if his parents died or disappeared. And since they were planning to cut him off financially, I guess it seemed like the only reasonable option for Joel Jr.
Right.
Yeah. In his notebook that he left behind, he had even written down $500,000 will be all mine with him missing / dead. I get the whole thing. That's what he wrote down. So that's why I said I think he was planning to try to stage his mother's murder, like his dad murdered her and then he ran off. But once he got into the whole stabbing thing and realized there's a lot inside of a human body to deal with.
Yeah, he's overwhelmed.
Joel Jr.'s trial lasted for 4 days, and there were more than 700 pieces of evidence and 27 witnesses. On October 2nd, 2020, he was found guilty on all charges, including the 2 counts of first-degree murder, 3 counts of first-degree felony murder, and 2 counts of abuse of a corpse. I don't understand why it's 3 counts of first-degree felony murder. Actually, you know what? We'll get to that. Just keep in mind that I said I don't understand the 3, and I don't know if they can add this to it, but grandma dies. Spoiler alert. We'll get to that, though. Apparently, the jury was unanimous on all 7 charges. He was sentenced to life in prison, and Judge Stephen Sword called Joel Jr.'s case the most extreme form of abuse of a corpse he'd seen in his 25-year career. Judge Sword also told Joel Jr. that he thinks that he was smarter than he really is, and that his crime was committed in a very unintelligent way. I'm glad you laughed, because that made me laugh when I read that.
I'm just glad somebody pointed it out, because it's just like, none of this makes any sense. And for somebody to appear like they were researching or planning it, it looks as if somebody did not plan it and was just winging it. So
it made me laugh, though, when he's like, you think you're way smarter than you really are, and this crime was committed in a very unintelligent way.
I don't even know how he could think of himself as an intelligent person.
He's been in school for 9 years. That makes him smart. Didn't you know that? Somebody just forgot to tell him you actually have to pass your courses in order to.
It's supposed to be progressive.
He didn't know that. They done forgot to tell him. Judge Sword also said that Joel Jr. showed zero remorse for his actions during the trial and even appeared proud as the details were laid out for the jury, which that's disgusting. Joel Jr. has a depraved mind, and it would not change given time. He will not be eligible for release for 130 years.
Well, there's hope.
However, During the sentencing, Judge Sword said 300 years isn't enough time to reasonably relate to what Joel did.
Does he say anything?
No.
And what did his sisters say?
His sisters were sad, apparently, obviously. And they were the ones that eventually describe him as being a recluse and keeping to himself. Posted a combined obituary for the parents, describing Lisa and Joel Sr. as having a wonderful sense of humor. They were both loving and kind-hearted, and they'd been married for 31 years and described them as soulmates. Lisa and Joel Sr. enjoyed anything that involved being together, which included being in nature and on the water. They loved their kids and adored their grandchildren. And then for the third count of murder, I don't know if it could count, but I found it interesting that Lisa's mother, when she was informed of what Joel Jr. did, she collapsed and was rushed to the hospital. She died.
Oh, shit.
Like when she found out what happened to her daughter and her son-in-law, she died. So I don't know if that can be included in his charges because his actions led to the death of another person. But I don't understand the 3 count. Well, I don't understand the 3 counts of felony murder because he only killed 2 people, unless you're going to throw grandma in on that.
That sounds like it's reaching.
Well, it's sad. And as of 2022, the Tennessee Department of Corrections, Joel Michael Guy Jr. is serving out his life sentence at Northwest Correctional Complex in Tiptonville, Tennessee, and he will be eligible for parole on January 24th, 2136.
I don't even know why they put that date in there. It's stupid.
It's funny. And okay, so to follow along with his personality, surprise, surprise, this little turd did not want to spend his life in prison. So he started telling people after he was found guilty that, so, with trials, they don't sentence you as soon as you're found guilty. You're found guilty, and then you're given another date to come back to court to do the sentencing, right? Mm-hmm. Well, in the meantime, between those court dates, he started telling people that he had fantasies of gouging out the eyes of fellow inmates and that he could possibly be a threat to the general jail population, and that he felt it would be better if he was executed. But Tennessee didn't want to execute him. They wanted him to sit in jail and rot. So on October 8th, 2020, so before he was sentenced, he wrote a letter saying, "I'm writing this letter because I don't want to end up with a disciplinary infraction or worse, more criminal charges, nor do I logically believe that this gentleman deserves to be blind." He wrote that 6 days after being convicted of murdering his parents. And then he wrote in that note, "I don't know what to do. I shouldn't be allowed access to another person while they are unconscious." So he made these threats and then gave them to authorities, like wrote them down and gave it to them because he wanted to be viewed as remorseless, depraved, and dangerous. And the summer before his trial, before he was even found guilty, he tried a legal move that would have allowed Judge Sword to impose the death penalty, but the state was like, no. So he kept trying to make it like he was a super dangerous person, so they would just execute him. He knew he was going to be found guilty because he had no excuse for his action. But
sounds like more of a reason to let him sit in jail.
Right? So they gave him 300 years.
Sounds like he's afraid of getting raped. So he's like, I need to get out of here. I need to be by myself. Sounds like somebody's been blowing kisses to him in chow hall.
But that is Joel Michael Guy Jr. and the murder of his parents. And happy Thanksgiving.
Perhaps after you go home, check on your relatives.
Yes. And no matter how angry you might be with them, don't resort to murder. It's not a good option.
Appreciate the people in your life and the sacrifices they make.
Yeah. Anyway.
Thank you for listening to Homicide Hobbies. I'm Claire.
I'm Andy.
Follow us each week to get your fix of the atrocities that occur in true crime. And don't forget to tell people about us and rate us if you like us. But don't rate us if you didn't. Just change the channel.